We have fought many of the cases of racial violence and police brutality over the last decades. We do not get involved in a case and leave. We keep supporting them, the families, giving resources and being present. We have family members, mothers, that some are forgotten by some, but not by National Action Network. And we want to bring them on to update us on their case and what is going on in their lives. Let us bring on first, you remember Botham Jean, who was shot in his own home when a policewoman said she went in the wrong house and thought it was hers. His sister's with us, Alicia, Finley, bring her up. Somebody help seat them. You know the case of Saket Clark, young unarmed man shot in his grandmother's backyard in Sacramento, California a year ago. His grandmother is with us, Saket Clark is with us. Oh, this is mother. We got mama with us, all right. This is mother with us, give her a hand. We all know the case of Terrence Cruncher, whose brother, Terrence Crusher, was there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, shot by a policewoman who said she thought he was reaching in the car for a gun. There was no gun and the window was closed. His sister, his twin sister, has been fighting that case, and we stand with her, Dr. Tiffany Crutcher. We have also the mother right here in Staten Island of Eric Garner, who was choked to death by police, the mother of Eric Garner, Gwen Carr. A case that shook the nation and I feel was handled in an exemplary way by this woman who sought justice for her son. And she became like family to me, her father, and her entire family. She's made us proud with her book, with her running for office. The mother from Ferguson, Missouri, of Michael Brown, Leslie McSpadden. I don't know where you got them hair and shoes. You must have been shopping up here before you come. You know I got to pick on her. I'm not good with lip reading. Okay. A woman of rare leadership and rare devotion. We've worked together the last 6 or 7 years, and it's never been about her. It's always been about the cause. We truly respect her and love her. She's been there for the other mothers. She's been there for us. No amount of travel is too far. no cause too unknown, the mother of Trayvon Martin, Sabrina Fulton. And we have asked the head of our Pennsylvania State Chapter National Action Network, Paula Peoples, to be on this panel. And it was a hard decision for the staff, but easy for me to ask who should moderate this panel, because they wanted someone that had some notoriety, and others wanted someone that had a track record in activism and understood the sensitivity of the movement. And I told them, well, I know one that has both notoriety and activism. In fact, was born into activism. Word is, when she was born and the nurse slapped her, she slapped her back. I've been able to confirm that. But she is my little sister. She's an activist extraordinaire and one we love with all our hearts. You know her, Angela Rye. You can use that line.
No. Thanks for it. Okay. Good afternoon, you all. How are you doing? You should tell the Reverend Al Sharpton that we expect him at all times to be a truth teller and not dish fake news about slapping nurses. I got the mic, so he can't say anything back. It's a witty one. I now have the tremendous privilege and opportunity to introduce you all. Most of you know this champion for civil rights. There's a great lawyer in history, Charles Hamilton Houston, who gave us the option to be parasites on society or social engineers. I bring to you attorney Benjamin Crump, who is a social engineer, a fighter, an activist, and a leader to so many of us. Please give him a warm welcome.
Good morning, National Action Network. To Reverend Al Sharpton, may it please this court. Ladies and gentlemen of this jury, my sister Angela Rye. Yeah, give her another round of applause. Represent us so well on CNN. You just be ready when she comes up. Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons, other distinguished members, Ed Gordon in the audience. I come here briefly to make an argument that it has always been our women, our sisters, in reaction to the tragedies that claim the life of our brothers, that have propelled the civil rights movement and the human rights movement in America. Always been the sisters. What I mean, Angela, is it was Sojourner Truth in the 1830s who watched her boyfriend get lynched that motivated her to turn her pain into power. And that's why women got the right to vote. They give a lot of credit to the white women, but when you look at history, it was Sojourner Truth. And to Ida B. Wells, the great newspaper reporter who documented, Sabrina, all around America, the lynching of black men, and helped to found the NAACP. She was motivated after seeing the first lynching to turn the pain into power. All the way to Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks, who refused to get up from that bus, says she remembered Emmett Till's face as she sat there. See, I'm telling you, National Action Network, it has always been these sisters who have led the way for the movement. So that's why it's so appropriate that we have them here today to talk about how they transfer their pain into power. And I'll quickly go through the list. Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon's mother, standing not too far from here, Angela, at the Million Hoodie rally, who said better than any lawyer could ever say it, that Trayvon was not just my son, he was your son. He was all our son. So we all got to stand up for justice. And because of that, we all know about Stand Your Ground, and just a couple of weeks in the fatal killing of Corey Jones, a church drummer, where the police officer lied and claimed he was in fear of his life and standing his ground. That is why he was convicted. It was the first time in 30 years. 30 years. Think about all the black people they killed in Florida in 30 years. It was the first time. And that's because they knew about Stand Your Ground from Trayvon Martin. Then we come to Leslie McSpadden, Michael Brown's mother in Ferguson, who ran for office. And even though she came a little short, she said the fire is lit. So y'all, the fire's lit. It was Leslie McSpadden meeting with Attorney General Holder and talking to President Obama that gave us the allocation bill where they bought over 500,000 body cameras for police officers all across the country. That was because Leslie on Canfield Avenue, while her son was laying there for over 4 hours, Leslie said, "This was my child. I know he didn't mean anything to you, but he was my child." And you all heard that. So Leslie demonstrated that. Gwen Carr, Eric Gardner, y'all know her. She's right here in New York. And what she did, she just told me they're having a hearing, Angela, a police hearing, where when these DAs don't do their job, you know, just because they say it's legal, that don't make it right. And so Gwen Carr did not give up. And now they're having an administrative hearing to fire not just the officer that strangled her son, Eric Gardner, but to fire everybody who was out there on that sidewalk. And then just 3 more, because I'm trying to make this argument because I want your verdict at the end now. We have Dr. Tiffany Crutcher from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who was like Michael Brown. You remember they said, hands up, don't shoot? Well, we had hands up, don't shoot on video in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they still didn't convict the white policewoman. And so Tiffany has started online a national campaign for police reform to make sure we change the Supreme Court instructions, I think, Angela, where they tell the police, all you got to do is say, I felt in fear of your life, and you get a get out of jail free card. Well, Tiffany Crutcher said, no, online, we're going to change this. The people will change this. Yes. And then we come to Alicia Joan Finley, the sister of Botham Joan, who, Angela, I still can't believe this one. I mean, we had got used to, unfortunately, they kill us like Philando Castile while we driving while black. They kill us like Michael Brown while we walking while black. But Botham Joan was in his own apartment, minding his own business. And this white policewoman allegedly comes in to his apartment and shoots and kills him. And now, Angela, get this. She's trying to say it was self-defense on her part. But thank God to his family Alicia and her mother, they have a foundation talking about Christian intervention for social justice because both of them was a devout Christian. So we're so happy for her presence here today. And then Saket Clark, y'all all know what happened to Stephon Clark being executed and his grandmother, Saquita, who's also here in her backyard. But Saket Clark and her son, Stephante Clark. Stephante, stand up. He's now Commissioner Stephante Clark in Sacramento, California. But what they did just today, you look on the cover of the Washington Post, and you will see it made it out of committee in California, some of the most sweeping police excessive force reform you've ever seen. And I'll tell you real quick, a quick legal lesson, they have changed from police officers, they're trying to change from police officers saying the use of necessary deadly force, Attorney Simmons, to say use of deadly force only when necessary. Now, if you know anything about the law, the words and the positions of words become very critical. So Angela, as a lawyer, she's not only a great commentator, but she also, as a lawyer, when she go on TV, she can explain that to the public, that the police can't now shoot us when we're running away and say they feel in fear of their life, like Antoine Rose, but now they got to say, it was the only thing I could do. I couldn't do nothing else. I couldn't tase them. I couldn't retreat. I couldn't call for backup. The only thing I could do was shoot them. And so that's to Stephon Clark's legacy, y'all. So give them a great round of applause. And in summation, I want to acknowledge and introduce one of your own, a National Action Network member from Connecticut, who I met at one of these conventions 3 years ago. And she is doing something so landmark, brothers and sisters. Tammy Lanier, you all saw it in the New York Times, she sued Harvard University for the return of the slave photographs, some of the earliest known American photographs in history of American slaves, and they are very valuable, worth millions of dollars. We sued Harvard Law School to give her family, the lineal descendants from the slave rentee, back the photographs. And when we do this, it will be so landmark, it would be the most landmark decision, I believe, in civil rights since Brown versus the Board of Education, because what you will have is, Ed Gordon, the first time that an American institution has had to give proper inheritance to the lineal descendants of African slaves. And it will set the groundwork, the foundation for all of us, lineal descendants of African slaves, to go back and get our 40 acres and a mule. So, ladies and gentlemen, I ask for your verdict. Do you agree that it was women, the sisters, standing in the gap for not just them, but for all of us to move the civil rights movement forward in America? Thank you. God bless you. I give you the greatest that we have to offer, the best that we have to offer, my sister, Angela Rye.
Well, the doors of the church are now open. We could just go home. No, he said the stage. Ben, you're supposed to sit down, Ben. Nice try. Set the stage for us to hear from these women, leaders among us, who have come into leadership, have been thrust into the public eye because of losing a loved one. And so I really want to start by grounding this conversation in ways that we don't often hear in the media. And that is ensuring that first we understand, before these young men were victims, they were human beings They were contributors to our community and to society. And so we just first need to say his name, right? And so I want you all to join me in doing just that. Terrence Crusher. Eric Garner.
Eric Gardner.
Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon Martin.
Botham John.
Botham John.
Michael Brown.
Michael Brown.
Stephon Clark.
Stephon Clark.
And just this past weekend, we lost a hero to our community that so many people may not understand the connection between this young man who grew up just like so many of our brothers and our cousins and our friends and our fathers, and has been an epic contributor to the Los Angeles community, leaving a legacy for us to all fulfill in our own communities. And that name is Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah, Nipsey Hussle.
So I wanted to start by grounding this conversation because given all that we've experienced collectively as a community, it is so easy for our hearts to become hardened, to just look at these situations and say it's a shame and then go on about our days. But these women, these leaders, these powerful human beings on this stage didn't do that. They took, as Ben said, that pain and turned it into power. Amen. And if we don't leave with anything else today, I dare us to leave with that call to action, to turn our pain into magnificent, connected, unified power to make a difference in this country. And so I want to start with just this question to just frame for you all, to tell us something about your loved one, your brother Tiffany, your brother Alicia, your sons, Sabrina, Leslie, and others. Tell us something about them that we don't know. And I just want that as a human connection point so that when we carry these stories with us of grief and frustration and anger, we remember their humanity first. So if you all, it doesn't matter who starts, but if you all can just give us something about who they were as a person and why it's so important for us to be connected to them.
I guess I'll start. How y'all doing? Trayvon was a mama's boy. I say all the time that Trayvon was an average teenager. He liked everything that the teenagers like. He liked those expensive shoes. I'm not going to say the name of them. I'm not going to endorse them because they're not paying me.
That's right. That's right.
But he liked those expensive shoes. He would be on the telephone all the time talking to some young lady. He would, he was just an average kid. And, when this first happened to my son, and the media told me that it was about the hoodie that he was wearing, that was a lie. All the kids wear hoodies. The young ladies, the guys, babies. I mean, everybody wear the hoodies. And now that I'm traveling and I'm speaking at different colleges and universities, I noticed that all of the kids wear it. All of the kids, not just African-American kids, but Hispanic kids, Asian kids. I mean, everybody wears those hoodies. And so, I'm just telling you, don't believe everything you hear. You gotta kind of, use your own common sense on things. But Trayvon was very affectionate. He thought he was handsome for some reason. I think one young lady told him that he was, and that was it. He used to wear long pants all the time. Somebody told him he had cute legs, so he started wearing shorts. So I'm just trying to tell you how average he was, how normal he was, how affectionate he was. Trayvon, like I said, could have been anybody's son, but he happened to be my son. My son who I would not have sacrificed. My son who is also your son. You might not have lost a Trayvon Martin, but you might have a Trayvon Martin in your home. But just continue to love him. Just continue to hold him. If they want to hug and kiss and be affectionate, let them. I wish mine was here so I could.
Alicia?
Hello. Hi. I'm Alicia. I'm Botham's sister. He called me Big Sis. Anytime he texted, he would start with yo. That was his favorite word. He actually, something about him is he thought he was a chef. I have so many pictures of his food. Anytime he cooked, he would take a pic and send it to me. One time he made a lasagna with pepperoni on top. He always has some creation. He was the most lovable person. He loved humor. He could diffuse any situation with humor. He was a giver. He loved his seniors. He looked at everyone like his grandma, grandpa. He was the best. We miss him. It's still raw for us, but he was my brother.
I'm a little hoarse, so excuse me, but Terrence Crusher was my twin brother. We were 3 minutes apart. We had just celebrated our 40th birthday a month before he was shot. We were planning my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. He loved gospel music. He loved to sing. 15 minutes after he left class at Tulsa Community College, he was shot dead in the middle of the street. He had 4 children that loved him, 3 girls and a boy. His little boy, Terrence Jr., I mean, the spitting image. Every time I look at Terrence Jr., I see Terrence, my twin, and I just want to love on him and protect him. And, you know, I'm afraid when he goes out. I'm afraid for the children in our community. But Terrence was a man of God. He, just a few days ago, the Tulsa World, someone wrote an editorial from Tulsa Public Schools to humanize Terrence and talk about the service that he provided to the local schools as a test proctor. He was a volunteer. My mom called Terrence her compassionate son because he would give you the shirt off his back. We would wake up and there would be someone on the couch, someone who didn't have a place to stay. And Terrence thinks he can cook too. He did, and he thought he was the rib king, and one of his specialty dishes was chicken spaghetti. And you know, I'm just gonna miss him. You know, we celebrated our second birthday, you know, with him being in heaven, but we still get that cake every year that says, "Happy birthday, Terrence and Tiffany," and it's just painful knowing that he's not here.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I just want to say to all of you, thank you all for all your support, you know, through this terrible tragedy of us all, really. But I would like to say about my son, he was so close to me. Even though he was a grown man, he would always check in with me. And even if I fussed with him about something he did, he never talked back or tried to, like, you know how some kids do, they want to razz up, "Oh, I know what I'm doing." Even if he thought it, he would not say it, you know. So that I just loved about him. And sometimes I used to calm myself down because I said, "This is a grown man you're talking to, and you're still talking to him like he's your baby," which he was my baby, you know. I mean, my oldest son, but you know, your children is still your baby. And he loved family. He loved family functions. Anytime we went to family functions, everyone would ask, "Well, when is Eric getting here? When is he getting here?" I said, "Oh, he said he'll be here soon, but you know, Eric is on Eric's time. You know, he get here when he get here." And he loved Christmas, and I guess that was my passion when my children was young. I used to go all out for Christmas for them. And then when he grew up, that was instilled in him, and he used to like to play Santa Claus for his children and then his grandchildren. And it was just like such a great thing when he was alive that the family could get together. Eric, he loved sports. He loved basketball. And when he was younger, he had asthma, and they thought that he was never going to be able to play sports. They thought he would never be able to, you know, run and jump, or had to be homeschooled. But that's when he was like only like a year old. They was telling me that his asthma was bad. But he defied all odds. He did everything that they said that he wasn't going to be able to do. And he was like the fastest runner on the team. And I used to look at him in amaze. The doctor told me that you would probably be like an invalid. might have to like walk you, you know, slowly. And you're the fastest runner on the team. And I was so, you know, and I bless God for that. And like, he was no cook, but he was an eater. But as you see, when he was murdered, you know how large he was. He wasn't that large when he was coming up. He always ate the way he ate. But he never gained. If you see his younger pictures, if you look at his graduation pictures, if you look at pictures when he was like in his 20s and his 30s, he was a slim guy, slim. It's, you know, I guess the medication, you know how when they put these steroids in this new medication that they give you, and that's when he started to gain weight. But you know, I'm going to miss him. That day that they told me that, you know, that he was no longer with me, was almost the saddest day of my life. But the saddest day of my life was when I went to the cemetery and he wasn't coming back with me. That was the saddest day of my life for losing my son, and I'm gonna always miss him. And you know, my story don't start with Eric. If you'll read my book, you'll see that I have had a lot of tragedies in my life. But you know, with the grace of God, I'm still standing and I can still talk to you.
And right after our forum today, Ms. Carr will be selling her books and signing her books out in the back. And I would now want to switch over here to Leslie to talk to us a little bit about what we don't know about Mike Brown.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Well, I'm going to share a funny story about Mike. I don't want to get too emotional. But, of course, everyone knows that's what we called him, Mike. And he loved dogs. He's always had a dog. He had a dog when he was 1 year old. He had a dog when he was 18 years old. And when my son passed away, a week later, his dog did as well. He missed him that much. But I'm going to take you back to when he was 1 year old with a dog. And I thought he was outside in the backyard with my mom while she was hanging clothes, and she happened to come in and she said, "Nebu, where is Mike?" I said, "Well, he was with you." She said, "No, he ain't. He was with you." And I said, "Well, I know who he with. He ain't with you or me. He with the dog." So I ran outside and I asked everybody, "You seen Mike? Where is he?" And everybody's like, "No, we ain't seen him." Well, his other grandmother stayed a block away. Miss Brown stayed just a block away from my mom. This is how close we all were. And something told me to go to that corner. And when I went to that corner and I looked to the right, I saw a pamper and a tail. And there was Mike trying to go to his other grandmother's house. But thank God no cars were coming or anything like that. It was just for a split second, y'all, and he ran out with this dog. His dog name was Spike. He couldn't pronounce it. He called him Pike, my pushy. And he just always had this thing for animals. He loved any kind of animal, but a dog was his favorite. But I knew that my son was a loving, caring being, and I will forever miss him. You know, he didn't have a chance to get a job, learn how to drive. He didn't have any children, but my son recorded so much music. I'm going to share one other thing, because my son was a part of special school district because he had a hearing problem. And at 1 year old also, he had tubes placed in his ears. So after the surgery, he could hear much clearer. And he started to make all this music and record all these beats. And so everybody wanted to be around him. He was like this producer without any skill. He taught himself. So I have loads and loads of iCloud music that my son made, but I'm preparing my heart to listen to his voice again. But those are some of the things about Mike.
Thank you, man.
Hello. Hello. I'm Saket. I'm Stephon Clark's mom. So something about him that you guys didn't know. When he came up, he was short, he was dark, he was fat. And his siblings all teased him in the house every day. Every day he would cry because his siblings teased him. And I would whisper in his ear like, Papa, don't cry. You know, you're gonna be the finest one I got. You're gonna grow up. You're gonna be fine. Watch, you believe mommy. Mommy ain't gonna lie to you. So one day he came home from school. He was going to Florida High in Sacramento. He was 16 years old. He broke running in the house. I was like, what's wrong? You know, what's wrong, Papa? He said, Mama, I'm fine, Mama. He said, Mama, I'm fine. He was like, look, I don't have a six-pack. I got an eight-pack. Mama, they love me. I was like, I told you, baby. I said, I told you you was going to be funny. So that's the part that people didn't know. Another thing that people didn't know about Stephon was that he was pursued academically for a full ride to St. John's University. So I have like 4 letters from there that they went from the printed copies to the embossed handwritten signatures where they really wanted to give him the full academic ride. Unfortunately, Stephon liked to play a lot of pranks, and in his senior year, he put what is that? The oral gel stuff for your tooth around his teacher's water bottle and in satin class. And so he ended up graduating from the Board of Education instead of the school. So he didn't end up at St. John's. He did go to college, but not there. But he was extremely intelligent, extremely athletic. He was a guy's guy. If there was any sport, he's gonna top it and beat it. His older brother, Stevante, was rapping at the time, so Stephon got on a couple of songs with Stevante, and they didn't make it to the album. I think Stevante got, because Stephon would come off of the head like really, really fast and quick, and Pharaoh was like, nah, we're gonna cut that out. We're not gonna let the world hear you. So anything he did, he always tried to be the best at it. He always exceeded. He was very intelligent. He's very handsome. He was the life of the party. Everybody loved him. Everybody loved him. And it is extremely hard every day without him.
Thank you. This panel is mothers of the movement, but what has mobilized them into movement is their motherhood first, right? The siblings even. I wanted us to make sure that we're grounded in the truth about who these folks are, because we never hear those stories in the media. And those are the kinds of things that we can use to fuel our work. Paula, you are doing some of that work on the ground. And so if for a moment you can just talk to us about the importance of human stories, human connection, to make sure that we are moving the community forward collectively.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Embodied in the work of the National Action Network is to pick up the bloodstained banner when we feel the pain of all the mothers that are here, the pain of mothers on the local level. That's what ignites the work that we do. One of the largest justice rallies that we had in Philadelphia was for Trayvon Martin. When my grandson was a sophomore at Morehouse, he sent me a picture, and I knew he had matured. Morehouse was doing their job because he had on a hoodie for Mike Brown. So the pain that we hear from the mothers today and that we experience on a local level is embodied in everything that we do. It propels the work that we do on a daily basis. It's not enough that we may not personally know Sabrina or Leslie or Miss Gwen. We know them. We can identify with them because we feel their pain. We feel their loss. Most of us don't want to experience the loss of a child. And so when we hear about an injustice, we stand up. NAN ignites, we mobilize, we organize, we put boots on the ground throughout this country. That's our charge. That's what we do on behalf of the mothers. We bring them to our locale. We brought many of these mothers here to Pennsylvania because the people on the local level, the foot soldiers, wanted to hug Sabrina. They wanted Sabrina to know that we feel her pain, that we too lost Trayvon. We too are Mike Brown. You heard our chants throughout this country. And so on a daily basis, we carry forth in a resounding way the call for justice. In Philadelphia, we're still fighting stop and frisk, which leads to the murder of young sons, young brothers. We're still fighting that, and it's unbelievable. In this day and time, almost 2020, we still have to fight to stop the police from killing our loved ones. Thank you.
Hey, Angela, can we just acknowledge Sean Bell's mother, who's in the audience? Yes. And her father.
And Ben, I know you mentioned it already, but I do want to make sure we acknowledge and all see Saket Thompson Clark, who is Stefan's grandmother as well. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. So I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about what our call to action is. We can't be at a National Action Network conference and not talk about what the roles are of everyone in this room, and understanding that we all have a role to play. You all have done so much already in your work. I want to know from you what else people can do. With the changing tide of this year's Congress, there have been 2 gun control bills passed, one broadening background checks finally after 2 decades working towards gun control legislation, and then Congressman Clyburn's bill extending how long folks have to do background checks, so you just can't give anybody a gun, also passed the House. But there are other things that we can do if we're not elected officials. If we don't even want to engage in the policy-making process, but we want to be boots on the ground in the community, please talk to us, ladies, about some of the things that you all are doing where people can chime in. Tiffany, we talked in the back about your new initiative you're working on, so that would be a great place to start.
Absolutely, and let me just first start by thanking Reverend Al Sharpton and Nan for all of their help, support. They've been to Tulsa on numerous occasions, standing with our family. But what prompted me, I just launched, and you all can get involved, a national campaign against bad cops. Because I don't know if you remember the video, and you heard the police officers in the helicopter that said Terrence looked like a bad dude. Y'all remember that? Yeah. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a national campaign against bad cops. And about a month ago, we got this letter that families dread. Of course, they never indict. They never find cops guilty for killing our loved ones. Maybe just a few here lately, Walter Scott, and that was an act of Congress. But a month ago, my family got this letter, the same letter that Miss Gwen got, and Alton Sterling's family got, and Mike Brown's mom, Leslie. We got this letter. The DOJ flew to Tulsa and said, we're sorry. We're not going to be able to press charges at the federal level. And they all but said that we know she's guilty, but because of the way the laws are written, we can't prove it. There's not enough evidence, you know, and that broke my heart. And I said, so what am I supposed to do now? And I started to just feel defeated, but I remember the words of Maya Angelou, you know, we may encounter defeats, but let us not become defeated. And so they told me that you got to go to Congress. And I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm doing is I'm launching the national campaign against bad cops. And if you want to join this movement, because it's going to take all of us. I know we're all working in our different states, but just think if we came together. There's an African proverb that says, when spider webs come together, they can tie up a lion. And I believe we all need to come together. And so I'm just going to ask you all to do one thing for me. Get your cell phone out and text reform. Everybody say reform. Reform. To 66866. Text reform to 66866, and we'll keep you posted on next steps. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I know also, Sabrina, you started a foundation after Trayvon's killing. And I know we've seen the hoodies. You talked about hoodies being popular. They were popular, but I think they got increasingly more popular for folks to say, this is not a weapon. This is an item of clothing, right? but also there are hashtags, Black Lives Matter, Stay Woke, I think even had a surge after Trayvon was killed. We can do all of those things and stay informed, but what are the next steps we should take to ensure we're also moving and acting?
One of the things I say that people always do the voters registration movement, but they need to do more a push when it's election day. And not just be a registered voter. You can't just be a registered voter. You got to take some action. Now you got to put that voters registration card to work. And you know, in Florida, I know we have early voting and we have absentee voting where they'll mail the ballot to your house. But just encourage people. Just ask your friends and family if they went out and voted and if they want you to go with them or whatever the case may be. But we got to push when it's time to vote. The other thing is the jury duty. When you're selected for jury duty, a lot of people, and y'all doing it now, they turn up their nose because they don't want to be involved in jury duty. But we really needed somebody that looked like Trayvon to be in the jury pool. That's right. Yeah. And so if everybody is too busy to do it, then we get other folks to do it, and that's why the person wasn't convicted. That's right. Another thing you can do is you can make sure you connect yourself with a nonprofit organization such as NAN. And then I'm going to suggest that we have a lot of different programs. I have a program coming up. It's called Circle of Mothers that I do for mothers because that helped with my healing when I was in a room with other mothers who needed to be healed as well. And so you can go on to the TrayvonMartinFoundation.org and find out some of the things that we're doing in Florida and all over the world. All over the country in reference to stopping gun violence and awareness about gun violence and those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Leslie, Sabrina just talked about voting wasn't enough. You being a registered voter isn't enough. You recognize that, took your political power back, and just announced, again, you're running for Ferguson City Council.
I did make the announcement.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Okay.
But that's okay. The election was yesterday.
The election was, but I thought, okay, I'm sorry. I thought that you were announcing that you were running again. Well, maybe we need to do that today.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's a possibility because they have someone there who's been appointed. And in 2020, I want to say next year, that seat will be up for actual election.
All right.
So, we'll keep hope alive. I'm not going to say if I am.
That's a new hashtag. We're starting a new hashtag today. Run, Leslie, run. In addition to that, Leslie, though, talking about some of the ways in which we've seen activism really just hit the roof in Ferguson. We've also seen repercussions, and this isn't designed to scare anyone, but I think we do have to understand there is fallout when we decide that collectively we're going to fight the power that exists, especially when it's an abusive power.
Right.
There have been a number of Ferguson activists who have mysteriously died. Mysteriously died, and I'm bringing that up to say, no pressure but pressure. We could really use you on the Ferguson City Council to launch an investigation to ensure that something is happening. But I want to talk about, even if you're not in elected office, what else do you think we could be doing throughout the nation to really force people to pay attention to what's happening on the ground in Ferguson still?
Exactly. And that's what I was trying to do. Someone who has been directly affected, someone who knows what it feels like to be unheard, ignored. I am a victim as well. People like us need to be in there to make the decisions and to guide the conversation and control the narrative when it comes to what happens to us in these neighborhoods where people come from 2 hours away to police our neighborhoods but have no understanding of our culture. They cannot relate to us, and they don't get that Uncle Joe doesn't drive and he wants to just walk to the store and get him something to drink, a pack of donuts or whatever the case may be. They think that we're all bad people, you know, because this is what they're being told when they get the job. But I personally wanted to stand up and go back to a place that did my son so wrong and my family so wrong, an entire community, and do something right. And they were so threatened by me standing up and speaking out in 2014, so you can imagine how they felt over the last couple of months knowing that I was running for a seat on Ferguson City Council. So.
And then Saket. I think so often we are told that we need to elect people who think like us, who have people in positions of power who absolutely have our best interests in mind. And we know that in California, we have an Attorney General, Javier Becerra, who many would have deemed has our best interests at heart and thinks like us. But when it comes to Saket Clark, who was shot at 20 times, shot 8 times, 6 of those times in the back, I don't know that many of us would see a distinction between the handling of the Laquan McDonald case and that case. And so I wonder what you would say to us today about the importance of ensuring that the people don't just look like us in terms of being people of color, but have truly had a demonstrative record of pushing policies and advocating for the least of these, even when they may not be able to pay what some others might pay in campaign contributions.
Angela Ross stepping on toes.
So,
Well, we have to tell the truth even when it's hard, right?
Amen.
so recently, the only person I trust in politics is my son, Devontae Clark, who has decided to run for mayor 2020 in Sacramento. So he's already registered, signed up, and stuff like that. So unless it's one of us, they're not going to get it. It's what I believe. Becerra's not one of us. He's closely related because he's in the Latin community, and they do suffer a lot of the same issues that we do. However, this has been ongoing since the existence of us in this country. The police started with slave patrol, so so they're not doing anything but what they've continued to be trained to do. They haven't changed up. They haven't flipped their script. We did. You know, we believed that they had changed because we have changed, but they have not. They have stayed the same. And so because they are still the overseer, okay, because the officers are the overseer in our communities, you know, we need to get the officers and the overseers up off of our plantations. We need to establish our own plantations with our own peacekeepers that we put in place to keep our peace. We need to become self-sufficient for real and stop talking about it. We need to be about it for real. Like, it's not for play anymore. It's not for play. They're going to continue to gun us down because they always have. They're going to continue to do it until we stand up and gun them down back or don't need them no more. I mean, we don't have to shoot them, but we can just not need them anymore. We can just not have them in our presence anymore. We can do that. We can become self-sufficient. It's not hard, but we have to love on each other, you know, and know that we deserve that. I know that I taught my sons that they deserve that, and that's why you guys know me today, because of what I taught my children, that they are important, you know, and so we are all important enough to get a quality of life that we don't have. We don't have a good quality of life because they have us believing that we don't deserve that, but we do. Amen. We are all important enough. We do. We need them out of our homes, out of our streets, out of our communities. And I'm trusting Mayor Clark to help get that done, to be the first, to be the first example. But yeah, that's what I believe. I think that the only way to get that is from us.
Okay, and Leslie, real quick, and then I'm gonna go to Ben.
Really quick, just to piggyback off what you said and give some support to your son, is that we are all living our purpose. And a lot of these political figures, it's about position and power with them. So just keep going on your purpose, and I will, and you do the same thing. Let God order your steps every day. It's okay to get into politics, but don't become that politician, you know.
That's right, baby.
So, and we know today there have been a number of presidential candidates who couldn't wait to grace the NAN stage, right? And I think so often they say exactly what they need to hear. They get in here, it feels like black church. They give you the best sermon they've ever delivered in their lives.
She's stepping on toes.
But true to what Sabrina said, it's not good enough, and we're not holding anybody accountable enough if all we're doing is going out to vote on Election Day. And so the question becomes, Ben, what do we do in this room as NAN members? I'm a lifetime member and proud of it. I hope we are all NAN members. What do we do as NAN members to ensure that they can't just be up here with pomp and circumstance, But when the circumstances come, they're on the right side of history then. What do we do? How do we hold them accountable?
That's right.
And I'll stand beside you because I think this is crucial. There are so many things we can do. I want to try to be concise with it, brothers and sisters. The first thing we have to do is what Sabrina talked about. You know, one of the hardest things to do, Angela, is to be a black lawyer, to be in the courtroom with your client, and the only thing black in the courtroom is you, your client, and the judge's robe. Brothers and sisters, that's the first thing we got to do. Attorney Solomon Simmons, all the black lawyers will tell you how heartbreaking it is when you got Terrence Cruncher coming in court for his one day, his one chance at justice. And then you see black people sitting in the jury panel trying to get off the jury. I mean, can you imagine people who marched for Trayvon? We had so many black people in Sanford, Florida, who said, well, it's too much of an inconvenience for me to be on jury duty. So that's the first thing. And last two things we gotta do, y'all, we gotta go to these city council meetings. Sacramento,
Yes.
boy, you talking about keeping it real, Saket Clark, Saket and them, they won't let them have a day of peace at the city council meeting. Can you imagine if that happened every time, whether it's Ferguson, Tulsa, Dallas, Texas, where ain't no damn business gonna get done unless you talk about why you killed my child. And then the last thing I want us all to do, and we can do, this reparations issue is so critical. I hope Reverend Al Sharpton, Angela, I hope you talk about it using your platform, because what's happening with this Harvard slave image lawsuit is groundbreaking. We all need to go on change.org and sign the petition so Harvard University, the leading educational institution, not only in America and in the world, will say you can't continue to condone slavery and be in a respected institution. America, you cannot continue to be respected until you acknowledge the inheritance that the descendants of African slaves gave America. So those are three things we can do today. Jury duty, go to city council, sign that petition, tell Harvard, free Renty, who is 169 years a slave. How long before we free Renty?
This won't be the first or last time that Ben didn't answer my question, but it was still powerful, and we do need to do all of those things. We are all leaving with some calls to action. Please hold these candidates accountable. Do not give your vote away or your power for free. They owe us explanations and an agenda for black people, including one that addresses police violence so there are no more deaths. Very quickly, and I have to introduce the Lieutenant Governor.
We have to go one. I just want to add to this list of staying woke.
Yes.
And that is to recognize the impact of gentrification in our communities beyond housing. Beyond housing. I don't have enough time to talk about it, but recognize the impact of gentrification on our communities beyond housing in relationship to justice and how we fight to make certain that police don't continue to kill our loved ones because different people decide to move on our block. Thank you.
You all can understand it's important that we have a unified black agenda. How many of you all are ready for a black agenda conversation? It's clear we need one. Let's hold Reverend Al to that. I'm giving him some more homework. I'll help him. At this time, introducing to you all Kathy Hochul, who is the Lieutenant Governor of this great state. Ready? Thank you all so much. Please go out and work, work, work. It's so important. Rest in power, Nipsey Hussle.
I am here in my capacity as the highest ranked mother in the state of New York, and God bless the mothers who are on this stage.